Hi everybody, my name's Colin Coldice. I'm the owner of Blue Snow. We make custom furniture. We also sell hardwoods and live edge hardwoods. We build custom furniture for clients all over the United States who cannot find someone either locally who have good, reliable kiln dried wood, or someone who just might not be in the area who can get a piece for their home or their family. We're super excited to have finally completed this beautiful piece for this client. Let me tell you something. Over the years, we have had so many frustrations when it comes to building forms for beautiful resin river tables like this. We've spent a lot of money on mold release, tapes, and all that summed up into 10 years of frustrating experience. In this video, we want to show you what we do, which may not work for everybody, but it works really well for us, as there was a client who wanted something beautiful, something that stood out in their home using gorgeous woods like these. And as you can see, when you're using burled maple, figured maple, resin doesn't always do well on the edge on the inside. You get so many bubbles and even cracks over time. With our product and our way, that does not happen at all. In this video, I hope that you're able to learn how to make something that can be such a headache into something more pleasurable for you in your experience with woodworking. Over the years, we're pretty tired of pouring resin and breaking our molds. It's taken about 4 or 5 years to figure out what we're gonna do. So we can use a mold that will last 100 pours, especially when clients are looking for multiples of one thing. So what we did, we went to Home Depot, got a couple sheets, even a little bit of the damage on there, gave us 20% of a discount, which was great. And we're gonna glue these together. Went down there and picked up something less than $50. Anybody can router through these with a hand router. In our case though, we will be using our CNC, which we'll go into here in a little bit. But most of all, what I'm trying to show you is the objective here is we're making a form. The form will be poured with our silicone, and that silicone is what's gonna hold our resin and our wood. So when we pour, we can use it over and over and not have to break our molds. For many years, we would buy MDF or simple ply and run mold release or tape over it. You might get away with 2 or 3 pours. It would then break. We got fed up with it, so we ended up going to a silicone mold. Cost a little bit more, but it definitely pays for itself in the long run. At this point, what we like to do is clean off the surface of these 2 sheets. And we roll on our resin a thin layer over all of them to basically adhere them together. You can use whatever product you like. We like to use resin. It takes about a day to cure and set up, but it's super strong. We can put it on the CNC and it won't float around or cause any problems. We have noticed that by doing something more simple with a silicone or even a super glue doesn't work nearly as good as a resin. So what we're going to do here is basically clean the surface of any dust or anything that could be just in the way. And then we'll go ahead and resin them and put them together. Right here, we put this in the microwave for about 5 to 10 seconds. The whole point of that is to make it easier to mix like this. Here, there is a lot of mixing. If you have mixed and you think that's good, I recommend mixing some more. If there are any pockets of unmixed resin, you will have gooey resin that will never cure right. Here it is really important that you have the resin on every surface of the foam, especially when it comes to pouring the mold, the silicone. In this step, a little bit of resin does go a long ways. Nothing here needs to be level, just pinched, clamped, and the two sheets need to be tight together. I believe we used almost 20 clamps. Here we're just laying out on the CNC the form where we want the bit to cut and how deep. Here we're just cutting off the excess, make it easier to handle, and we recycle the rest in smaller forms like coasters, things like that. When mixing the silicone, it is important to mix here as well. Again, if you think you've gone enough in mixing, I'd say keep going. Unfortunately here, we cannot warm up the silicone to make it easier to mix. It does take some time. One more step that is really important when it comes to the mold is we just went down to the dollar store, got some really cheap, inexpensive Vaseline. You coat that sucker good, and that silicone, once it's poured, will release right out of this form. At this stage, we fill up the grooves first. They take a lot more material, and we want to make sure there's no bubbles in it. This is us mixing it again as we go down in the material, just to get any bubbles out. Just like concrete, leveling it all off. It's super important that that is level in this step. I do recommend being gentle when pulling it out, but once it's dried and cured, it is super durable. Once they're out, it is important to put it on a flat surface just for a hot minute here. Go through it, make sure there's no big cracks or tears or anything like that. This stage of the project, we are flattening one side of the burl. At times, because they can be really wonky after drying, there will be parts that the joiner might not hit. Like right here. It is very important that you get all of them on one side or the resin will go under and you'll spend way more time and material in filling those voids. For this particular project, the back doesn't have to be perfect, as we'll be shaping it later. When it comes to really unique pieces like these, it is important to work through those crevices. If you don't, it ends up being fairly bubbly on the live edge there. So we'll go through with these tools, simple hand tools, and just clean them up. Remember, they're not going to be perfect. Something to note at this stage is our live edge has not been prepped with a grain sealer. Now, it is a good idea to do that, but in this particular form we did not, because we wanted to really highlight the color of the naturalness of the wood. Sometimes with certain grain sealers, it will actually amber the wood and change the color. For this client, that was a big no-go. So before we pour our resin, we leveled off the form, and at this stage we are getting ready to mix up the resin. A little bit of our black dye goes a long ways, just a little bit. And it's a simple product. You can get it at any Sherwin-Williams, Rada, very inexpensive. All it is a paint dye, so a black paint dye. Again, bubbles are our enemy. Simple thing you can do before you pour is just hit it with some heat real quick. So you can see the bubbles forming as he's pouring it. It is a normal event. If you get it, that means you're doing it right. It's when they form along the live edge that can create a problem after curing. Because this is deep pour, it is a little bit easier to manage when it comes to bubbles versus a surface pour. So here, it's all cured and we're pulling it out of the form. Look how easy and less of a mess it is when using just a simple silicone. Again, we can use this over and over and over, and it's awesome. It is important to store these on a flat surface. They can roll up. Again, you do not need to flatten the top of your slabs when you're putting it into the form. The CNC or hand router will do all that. Anybody who has a router out there, those are wonderful cleats that hold your piece in place. We would have ran the dust collector, but it would have been a lot of background noise. Not everybody has access to sanders like these. If you don't, just put some time aside for hand sanding. Typically start at 80 grit and work our way all the way up to 600 when it comes to resin tops. Double checking here for any bubbles or anything that might have been missed. As you sand it, what you're doing is working down in the material, and sometimes a bubble or two might get away from you, but this one came out super sharp. Here we're just forming it to the size the client wants. Something really fun. Our remnants from pieces like these make for really cool picture frames, especially when the resin is integrated with the wood. At this stage, we're basically in the final steps. Something that I think should be noted here is when you do resin like this, it is really easy for us to be able to finish something with a water base. If you use an oil base, just be careful of fisheye. Sometimes certain oil bases react to the surface of the resin. When we do resin rivers like these, we use a water base so we don't have to worry about the fisheye. Our finish takes about 12 hours to fully cure. Sometimes it's difficult to drill through the burl, but here at this stage what we're doing is just putting in our anchors for the base to mount to. It is important when you're drilling through the resin like that you get that hole very close to the diameter of your anchor. If it's too tight, it will crack the resin. You don't have to go tight on your final bolts. Just a good torque setting will suffice. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. We've got more coming out.